Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you love captivating stories about men transforming into women in unique and fascinating ways, then be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Now, let's jump right into today's tale.
It was a Friday night like any other. Craig and Handel were slouched on the couch, surrounded by pizza boxes, empty soda cans, and the faint scent of despair. Well, mostly Craig's despair. Handel was fine. Handel was fine. Craig, however, was 3 weeks into what could only be described as the breakup blues. A deep, soggy pit of self-pity and existential dread. "I'm telling you, mate," Craig groaned, slumping so far into the couch cushions, it was like he was trying to disappear into another dimension. He grabbed another slice of cold pizza, examining it with the same enthusiasm as a man facing execution. "I'm gonna die alone. Like, proper alone. Cats and everything." Handel raised an eyebrow and took a sip of his drink, ice cubes clinking against the glass. "You're allergic to cats." "Exactly." Craig flung a limp arm into the air, nearly knocking over a half-eaten bag of chips. A few sad crumbs rained down onto his already food-stained hoodie. "I'll be the tragic bloke who dies alone in a flat full of cats that I'm allergic to. They'll find me weeks later, half-eaten by the furry little bastards. The headlines will read, 'Local man found dead. Cats look suspiciously well fed.'" "Christ," Handel muttered under his breath. Then louder, "Bit dramatic, don't you think? You're acting like you're starring in your own tragic BBC drama." "Oh, I wish. At least then I'd have a compelling storyline. Right now, I'm more like a rejected contestant from Love Island." Craig sat up now, his eyes wide with the kind of manic energy only heartbreak and too much caffeine could inspire. "I'm serious. Look at me. I'm a disaster. No woman's gonna want to date this." "I'm date, mate," Handel said, leaning back and crossing his arms, eyeing Craig's disheveled state with a mixture of amusement and concern. "You're not that bad. You just need to clean up a bit. Maybe shower. Once. Ever. When was the last time you changed those pants?" Craig looked down at his tracksuit bottoms, considering. "What day did Sarah leave? Jesus Christ." "It's called mourning, Handel. This is what heartbreak looks like." "No, this is what giving up looks like. You look like a homeless philosophy professor who's lost his tenure." Craig groaned again and flopped back down dramatically, sending a pizza box sliding to the floor. "It's over for me. I'm doomed to a life of loneliness. You wouldn't understand. You've always been the lucky one. You've got, I don't know, warlock energy or something." Handel froze for just a second, his drink halfway to his mouth. "What? You know what I mean?" Craig waved a hand dismissively, oblivious to his friend's sudden tension. "You've got that whole mysterious vibe going. Always landing on your feet. Always knowing what to say. That time at uni, when we needed tickets to that sold-out gig? Boom, you had them. When my car broke down in the middle of nowhere, you just happened to know a mechanic nearby. If I didn't know better, I'd swear you actually were magic." Handel chuckled nervously, adjusting his collar. "Yeah, well, wouldn't that be something? I mean, remember last month when you predicted that freak storm? Called it down to the minute. That was weird, mate. Proper weird. Lucky guess." Handel mumbled into his drink. Craig didn't notice the way Handel suddenly looked a bit too interested in his drink, studying the ice cubes like they held state secrets. He was too busy spiraling. "All I want is to find the perfect woman. Is that too much to ask? Just one woman who gets me, who's everything I've ever wanted. Someone who'll actually stick around. Someone who won't judge me for my Star Wars collection or my inability to cook anything more complicated than toast. You burned toast yesterday. That's not the point. Handel glanced at his best mate, who was now staring dejectedly at the ceiling, like it held the answers to life's greatest mysteries. He sighed. Craig was a good guy. A bit of a mess, sure, but a good guy. And Handel hated seeing him like this. Of course, Handel could do something about it. He'd been keeping his little magical secret under wraps for years. But if there was ever a time to intervene, this was it. After all, what were warlock powers for, if not helping your best mate get out of a funk? Handel leaned forward, a mischievous grin creeping across his face. All right, mate. What if I told you I could help you find your perfect woman? Well, child, Craig snorted. What? Are you going to sign me up for one of those dodgy dating apps? No thanks. Been there, done that. Got the restraining order. Handel shook his head. No. I'm serious. I've got connections. You're not setting me up with your cousin again, are you? Last time she tried to sell me essential oils. Told me they'd align my chakras. My chakras are fine, thank you very much. They're the only thing about me, that is. Not my cousin, Handel said, rolling his eyes. I mean, something a bit more. Unconventional. Craig squinted at him, pizza sauce on his chin. Unconventional how? Because if this is like that time you tried to convince me to join your hot yoga class, that was for your own good. I pulled muscles I didn't even know I had. Handel hesitated. He'd never actually told Craig about the whole warlock thing. It wasn't that he didn't trust him. It was just that Craig wasn't exactly the kind of guy who handled surprises well. The man had nearly fainted when they changed the menu at their local pub. You trust me, right? Handel asked. Craig gave him a wary look. That's a loaded question. Last time you asked me that, we ended up in Cardiff with no pants and a stolen traffic cone. Just answer. Fine. Yeah, I trust you. Why, Handel grinned, and there was something different about it this time. Something that made the lights flicker ever so slightly. Because I'm about to change your life. Later that night, after Craig had finally fallen asleep, in a pile of pizza crusts and self-loathing, occasionally mumbling something about cats plotting his demise, Handel got to work. He tiptoed around their shared flat, grimacing at every creaking floorboard. Craig's snores, which sounded like a congested chainsaw having an existential crisis, provided decent cover. He pulled out an old leather-bound book from his closet, the kind of book that looked like it belonged in a dusty old library, or possibly a horror movie. The cover was worn, with mysterious stains that might have been coffee, blood, or perhaps just really enthusiastic ketchup. Right then. Whoa, Handel muttered, blowing dust off the cover and immediately regretting it, as he suppressed a sneeze. Let's see what we've got here. He flipped through the pages, past spells for everything from growing perfect tomatoes to turning your neighbor's car into a pumpkin, which he'd only used once, and that git had deserved it. Finally, he found what he was looking for. A spell to summon someone's perfect romantic match. The page was decorated with elaborate illustrations of hearts and what appeared to be cupids doing parkour. Warning, Handel read under his breath, squinting at the fine print. Results may vary. Side effects include, but are not limited to, spontaneous poetry, excessive glitter manifestation, and in rare cases, dimensional rifts. Well, that seems reasonable enough. It was a bit tricky, sure, but Handel was confident he could pull it off. He'd once successfully transformed a rubber duck into a working submarine, though it had insisted on playing the Beatles underwater, which was odd. Sorry, mate, Handel whispered, examining the hair. But you wouldn't miss it. You have plenty. Besides, this is better than that time I had to get a toenail clipping for that good luck charm. From the couch, Craig let out a particularly loud snore that sounded like a drowning elephant. Charming, Handel muttered. No wonder you're single. He arranged everything according to the book's diagram, which looked less like magical instructions and more like someone had let a spider dipped in ink do interpretive dance across the page. The candles cast eerie shadows on the walls, making the room look like a discount Halloween party. Handel muttered the incantation under his breath, the words flowing like an ancient song. If that song was being sung by someone who'd had their tongue tied in a knot. Amor vincit omnia. Something. Perfectus Machius. Done. Bloody hell. Who wrote this? A drunk monk. The air around him began to hum with energy, and the candles flickered wildly. The salt circle started to glow with a pinkish light that reminded him uncomfortably of Craig's collection of flamingo-themed socks. "All right," Handel whispered to himself, trying to ignore the way his hands were starting to sweat. "Here we go, Craig's perfect woman, coming right up. Please don't be another essential oil enthusiast." But something was off. The energy in the room shifted suddenly, like a gust of wind had blown through, even though all the windows were shut tight. The candles weren't just flickering anymore. They were doing what looked suspiciously like the cha-cha. Handel frowned. That's definitely not supposed to happen. The spell specifically said no dancing candles. Well, technically it said no flammable choreography, but same difference. Before he could react, the spell's energy surged back toward him, a glowing wave of light that slammed into his chest like a freight train driven by an overenthusiastic sugar-rushed toddler. Handel's eyes widened as he felt the magic twist and churn inside him, reshaping him in ways he couldn't even comprehend. "Oh, crap," he muttered, watching his hands start to glow like a disco ball at a rave. "This is going to be really hard to explain at breakfast." And that's when the screaming started. A high-pitched sound that definitely wasn't coming from Craig, who was still snoring away, now mumbling something about fighting ninjas with a spatula. It took Handel a moment to realize the screaming was coming from him. The last coherent thought that went through his mind before everything went dark was, "I really should have read the terms and conditions on page 394.